It was a night like any other when Amanda decided to throw it all away. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through some old magazines, while she moved about the living room, packing her things in a hurry. The dim light from the lamp cast long shadows, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shatter. For years, I had watched as our marriage slowly crumbled, but I had hoped, at least, that we would find our way back. I never expected the sudden, cold finality that came with her announcement. She turned to face me, her eyes avoiding mine, and her voice was shaky but determined. "I'm leaving," she said, as if it was something casual, a decision made over lunch. The words hit me harder than I could have imagined. "For who?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even, though inside, a storm was raging. My chest tightened, my breath shallow as I waited for her to speak. "His name's Ethan," she muttered, barely looking at me. I've been seeing him for a few months now. I think I love him." I froze. Love? She loved him? The reality of her infidelity sank in like a stone in a pond. I had never imagined she would betray me like this. I thought we were still together, still trying, albeit clumsily, to hold on to whatever shred of love remained. But this was a different kind of betrayal. She began to walk toward the door, but I couldn't let her just leave. "You're just going to walk out?" I asked, my voice now tight with a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "Just like that?" She didn't even flinch. "I don't want to fight anymore," she said, not looking at me. "It's done. I've made up my mind." I stood there, stunned, as she grabbed her suitcase and opened the door. The sound of it clicking shut behind her was the loudest noise I had ever heard in my life. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. It was as if my world had stopped turning. I remember sitting there for hours, numb, as the weight of what had just happened began to settle in. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, was gone. Not just physically, but emotionally. And the man who had taken my place in her heart, Ethan, was now her everything. I wasn't even a thought in her mind anymore. The woman I had given everything to had replaced me with someone else. But what really broke me wasn't just her leaving. It was the way she spun the narrative. A few days later, I discovered that Amanda had begun posting on social media about how much she missed me, and how hard it was to leave the life we had built together. She painted herself as the victim. The woman who had tried everything, but was left with no choice but to walk away from the marriage. It was a slap in the face. It wasn't enough for her to leave, she had to manipulate everyone into believing I was the one who had failed her. I sat there, staring at the screen of my phone as I read her words. Leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I know it was the right thing. I'll always love him, but I have to follow my heart now. #miss you #heartbroken. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a lie. She wasn't heartbroken, she wasn't missing me. She was living a new life, one that she didn't want to share with me. And here she was, playing the victim for everyone to see. Something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to sit back and let her turn this into a pity party. She had humiliated me, made me out to be the villain in her carefully curated story. Well, if she wanted to play that game, I was going to make sure she regretted it. I needed to think clearly. I couldn't let my emotions guide me, even though the pain gnawed at my insides. I had been blindsided, left with nothing but the scraps of a life I thought we had shared. But I wasn't going to wallow in self-pity or anger. No, that wasn't my style. I had a different kind of vengeance in mind. One that would make Amanda understand the consequences of her actions. I spent the next few days quietly observing her social media posts, reading her fake messages about how heartbroken she was. It was as if she was painting herself into a corner, one where I was the villain who couldn't handle the fact that she was moving on. The more I read, the more I realized how perfect this opportunity was. Amanda had exposed herself in a way she couldn't have predicted. She thought she could get away with rewriting our history, with turning me into the bad guy, but I knew the truth. And now, it was time to flip the script. I began by subtly altering the narrative she was crafting. I made sure to post a few things on my own social media, nothing too over the top, but enough to send a message. Pictures of me at a bar with a group of friends. I posted about new beginnings, about looking forward to the future and embracing change. I didn't have a new girlfriend yet, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that I made it seem like I was the one who had moved on. I wanted Amanda to see this and realize that, while she thought she was out of my life, I was out of hers too. At first, Amanda didn't notice. Or at least, she didn't comment on it directly. But I could tell she was paying attention. It was in the way her posts became more frequent, more desperate. She started talking about how she missed the good times, and how life just wasn't the same without the old days. She was trying to reel me back in, trying to play on my guilt. But I wasn't buying it. That's when I took it up a notch. I started subtly changing the dynamics of our mutual friendships. There were a few people we both knew, a few friends from back when things were still normal. I reached out to them, casually, through texts or social media DMs. Nothing that screamed manipulation, just simple things. Hey, I've been doing well, just trying to focus on myself these days. I made sure the people she trusted knew that I wasn't sitting around pining for her. And then, it happened. Amanda noticed. She called me, frantic, her voice shaking with a mix of fear and frustration. "What are you doing? You can't just move on like this. You're supposed to be heartbroken. You're supposed to miss me." I stayed calm as I had been during the entire ordeal. "Amanda, I'm fine. I'm moving forward. You left, remember? You said you needed space, so I'm giving it to you." My words were measured, precise. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of hearing the pain in my voice. Instead, I gave her exactly what she had given me, emptiness. But this wasn't enough for her. No, she wasn't ready to let go. Amanda had always been a master of control, and she wasn't about to let me slip away without a fight. That night, she posted a picture of the two of us, an old one, from when we were still happy. The caption read, "The good times will always be in my heart. I'll never forget him." It was a calculated move. She wanted to make it clear to everyone that she was still grieving the relationship, that she was still holding on to the past. But she didn't know that I had already moved on. And now, I was going to use her own tactics against her. It didn't take long for Amanda to realize the mistake she had made. It's funny how people like her think they can control everything around them, including the narrative of their relationships, but once that narrative starts slipping through their fingers, they panic. That's exactly what she was doing now. The more I played along with her social media charade, the more desperate she became. And every time I showed her I was fine without her, it made her panic even more. I could see her unraveling in real time. Her posts began to grow more erratic. She'd post sentimental throwbacks one moment, and the next, she'd be out with her friends, trying too hard to look like she was enjoying life. I couldn't help but laugh to myself, knowing exactly how it would all play out. She was trying to convince everyone, herself included, that she was happy, that moving on had been the right choice. But I knew better. The real kicker came a week later, when I saw her post something that hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a picture of us, from the night we got engaged. The caption? "It feels like just yesterday that we were so happy. It's hard to believe that things turned out this way. I'll always love him." It was a move so calculated, so transparent, that I almost felt sorry for her. She was trying to bait me into feeling sorry for her. She was trying to make people think that she was the one who had been wronged, the one who had been betrayed. But it wasn't going to work. Not this time. I let the post sit there for a few hours, just long enough for her to think it was having the desired effect. Then, I struck. I posted my own picture. A simple one. Just me standing outside a bar, looking casual, enjoying the night. No caption at all, just the image. But there was something about it, something about the way I looked in that picture, the way I carried myself, that was a direct counterpoint to everything she was trying to portray. I wasn't sad. I wasn't heartbroken. I was fine. And that was when the calls started coming in. First from her friends. Then from her. The messages were frantic, desperate. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you posting stuff like that? You're supposed to be grieving, not out having fun. What are you doing?" I could hear the panic in her voice, and it was the sweetest sound. She had thought I'd be the one begging for her back, the one sending messages of regret. But it wasn't happening. Not on my watch. "I'm doing just fine," I said, calm and composed. "It's funny, isn't it? You walk away and expect me to fall apart, but instead, I've found a new rhythm. A better rhythm." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She had no response to that. She hadn't expected me to move on this quickly, to turn the tables and play the game her way. But now, it was my game, not hers. But I wasn't done yet. The first strike had been easy, showing her I wasn't as devastated as she thought. Now came the harder part. The real psychological warfare. I started to subtly undermine her. I reached out to a few mutual friends, people she trusted, and began to plant the seeds of doubt. Nothing direct, nothing that would make me look like a villain, but just enough to make her start questioning her relationships. Small, subtle jabs about her behavior since the breakup, about how she seemed to be trying too hard to move on, about how she had hurt people without thinking. It wasn't just about getting back at her for the betrayal, it was about making her realize that she had been the one who pushed everyone away. She had built her own cage, and I was just reminding her of the bars. By now, Amanda had figured out that I wasn't playing by the rules anymore. She had hoped that with a little drama and manipulation, I'd come crawling back. But that wasn't going to happen. The more I distanced myself, the more desperate she became. It was fascinating to watch her unravel, her perfectly constructed facade starting to crack. But this time, I wasn't just going to make her regret her decision, I was going to make her feel the weight of it. It started with small things. A comment here, a suggestion there. Little whispers in the ears of people she cared about, people who were close to her. I wasn't outright attacking her, no, that would be too obvious. Instead, I made sure to subtly undermine her image. It wasn't enough for me to just show that I was fine without her, I needed her to see that she had made a colossal mistake, and that everyone around her was beginning to see it too. I knew how she worked. She thrived on being the center of attention, on controlling the narrative, especially with her friends. She wanted to be the one everyone looked to for guidance, for sympathy. But now, the tables had turned. She was no longer the victim of my actions, she was the victim of her own choices. I started with her closest friend, Sarah. Sarah had always been the one to listen to Amanda's complaints, the one who could calm her down after any argument. She was also the one who had witnessed firsthand how Amanda had manipulated me for years. One night, I casually reached out to her, pretending to be a friend trying to make sure she was okay after the breakup. "How's Amanda doing?" I asked, pretending to be concerned. "She hasn't been herself lately, has she?" Sarah responded immediately. "She's fine, I guess. But, honestly, she's been really upset about how things ended between you two. It's like she's trying to act like it doesn't bother her, but I can tell it's eating her up." I paused for a moment, as if I was considering my next words carefully. "I just want her to be happy, you know. But sometimes I wonder if she's really happy with the way things ended. I've been seeing a different side of her lately. It's like she's trying to be something she's not." There was silence on the other end of the phone, and then Sarah responded, quieter now. "What do you mean?" I leaned in, my voice calm but heavy with meaning. She's putting on a front. Acting like she's moved on, but I don't know, something feels off. Maybe it's the way she's been handling things. You know, she's always been good at getting what she wants, but this time, I don't know if it's healthy for her. I don't know if she's really okay. I didn't push too hard. I let Sarah absorb it, let her mind wander to the possibility that maybe Amanda wasn't as perfect as she wanted everyone to believe. I didn't need to convince Sarah, all I needed to do was plant the seed of doubt. And from that moment on, Sarah started pulling away, inch by inch, from Amanda's tight grip. It wasn't long before the cracks started showing. One by one, Amanda's friends began to distance themselves. At first, she didn't notice. But then, she started to see it. Invitations to brunches that never came. Texts that went unanswered. Friends who had been so eager to comfort her in the past were now too busy for her. And Amanda, ever the master manipulator, tried to twist it into something else. She would tell herself that it was just a phase, that her friends were busy, or that they were jealous of her newfound freedom. But deep down, she knew the truth, she had burned every bridge, and now the only person left was her new lover, Ethan. But even that wasn't as it seemed. Ethan, the man she had left me for, had begun to pull away as well. It started with small things, canceling plans at the last minute, not responding to texts, and, eventually, ghosting her entirely. Amanda was confused, hurt, and, despite all her bravado, starting to crack. She didn't understand it. She had given up everything for this man, and now he was disappearing just like the rest. That's when I knew the time had come to escalate things. I had to push her further into the corner, make her question everything she thought she knew. I started creating more tension between Amanda and Ethan. It was subtle at first, leaving little hints that he was seeing someone else, dropping casual comments to mutual friends about how Ethan seemed distant lately, or how Amanda deserved better than someone who couldn't be bothered to reply to a text. It wasn't enough to directly accuse him, but it was just enough to plant doubt in her mind. By the time Amanda reached out to me again, her voice cracked, a mixture of frustration and vulnerability seeping through. "What have you been telling people about me?" she demanded. "Why is everyone suddenly acting like I'm falling apart? Why is Ethan distant? What's going on?" I smiled, enjoying the moment. "Amanda," I said softly, "you're the one who pushed everyone away. Don't blame me for the consequences of your actions. It was working." I could hear the panic in her voice as she realized she had no control left. Every relationship she thought she could rely on was crumbling, and all I had to do was sit back and watch. I knew the moment was coming. I could feel it in the air, the tension hanging heavy as Amanda's life continued to spiral out of control. The carefully constructed image she had worked so hard to build, where she was the brave, independent woman leaving her old life behind, was starting to crack. I had been feeding into it, subtly pulling at the seams, and now, the threads were beginning to fray. It wasn't just Ethan pulling away now. It was everyone. Her friends, once eager to support her and listen to her complaints about me, were suddenly disinterested, too busy to hang out, or, most tellingly, quietly choosing to spend more time with me. And Amanda could sense it. I could see it in her eyes the next time I ran into her at a mutual friends gathering. She hadn't expected things to turn out like this. She thought she could walk away from me, move on with Ethan, and everyone would cheer her on. But now, no one was cheering. People were slowly but surely realizing who she really was. "Why is everyone treating me like I'm the one in the wrong?" she demanded, her voice sharp as we stood in the corner of the room. The noise of the party, the clinking glasses, the idle chatter, all of it seemed to fade as she locked her eyes on me, her face a mixture of confusion and anger. I could feel her grip on the situation slipping, and I couldn't have been more pleased. "Maybe they're just starting to see the real you," I said, my tone low and calm, letting every word sink into her. The woman who left her husband for another man and then tried to play the victim when things didn't work out. Her eyes flashed with frustration. I didn't want to be the bad guy, she shot back, but there was a quiver in her voice. You're the one who couldn't even make things work between us. I gave you everything. I tilted my head, considering her words, but I wasn't moved. I could tell she was still holding on to the illusion of being the good person in this story, the one who had sacrificed so much for me. But the cracks in that facade were becoming too wide to ignore. You're right, I said, giving her a small, almost pitying smile. You did give me everything, until you didn't. The words hung in the air between us. It was the truth. She had given me everything she thought she could. But the moment it became inconvenient, the moment she realized that life with me was no longer what she wanted, she had taken it all away. The emotional investment, the time, the love, she had discarded it like a used tissue and walked away without a second thought. Amanda didn't respond right away, but I saw the way her shoulders tensed. The people around us, once loyal to her, had slowly begun to gravitate toward me, offering sympathetic glances, silent nods that spoke volumes. She was losing her grip on her social circle, and she knew it. It was inevitable now. She could feel the walls closing in, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I don't know what you want from me, she said finally, her voice quivering. I just want to move on. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. Then do it. Stop pretending to miss me. Stop trying to control the narrative. Because it's not working anymore. She stepped back, eyes wide, as if she had just realized that the game was up. She wasn't going to win this one. And what's worse, she knew it. The desperation in her voice only grew when she called me later that night, her tone almost pleading. I need your help, she said. I don't know what's happening, but everything's falling apart. Ethan's pulled away. My friends, my family, they're all treating me like I'm some kind of villain. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I stayed silent for a long moment, letting her words linger in the air. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when her vulnerability finally surfaced. She had spent so long pretending to be the strong, independent woman who had it all figured out, and now, she was nothing more than a scared little girl, afraid of the consequences of her own actions. I don't know what to tell you, I said softly, though every word was calculated. You've burned too many bridges, Amanda. And you're right, everything is falling apart. Because that's what happens when you push people away and expect them to come running back. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, but I could hear the small, shaky breath she took. She wasn't used to hearing this from me. I had always been the one to apologize, the one to try and fix things. But not anymore. The tables had turned. And I was enjoying every minute of it. You don't get it, she whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't think it would turn out like this. Oh, I get it, I said, my voice cool and detached. You didn't think it through. And now you're reaping the consequences. The following days were a blur of phone calls, half-hearted apologies, and increasing desperation from Amanda. She had lost control, and it was all starting to collapse in on her. Every step she had taken to distance herself from me, to paint me as the villain, was now working against her. Ethan was gone, her friends were pulling away, and now, it seemed, the world she had so carefully crafted was slipping away faster than she could hold on to it. It wasn't long before she reached out to me again, her tone now not just frantic, but pleading. I can't take this anymore. I don't know what happened. Everything is falling apart. Ethan's not returning my calls. My friends, they're all so cold. I'm losing everything. Can't you just tell me what to do? This time, when I picked up the phone, I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. She had come to me for answers. She had tried to control the narrative, to rewrite the story of our breakup to make herself look like the hero, and now she was begging me for help. It was almost poetic. "Isn't it a little too late for that, Amanda?" I said, my voice steady. "You've burned every bridge. You made your choices, remember? You're the one who left, who decided to play the victim when you're the one who did the most damage." "I know," she replied, her voice breaking. "I know I messed up. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen." I could feel the familiar tug of sympathy. Part of me wanted to console her, to take away her pain, but I knew that would only make her feel justified. I wasn't here to make her feel better. I wasn't here to heal her wounds. This was my time to make her understand just how much damage she had caused. "I'm sorry too," I said, and the words were cold, detached. "But I'm not going to be your emotional crutch anymore. You've made your bed, Amanda. Now you have to lie in it." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more defeated. "What am I supposed to do now? I don't know how to fix this. I never meant for things to get so out of control." I let the silence stretch between us. I could feel the tension rising in her words, the unspoken plea for help. She wanted me to step in, to tell her how to get her life back together, how to fix the mess she had made. But I wasn't going to do that. Instead, I took a different approach. "You know what I think?" I asked softly. "I think you need to let go. You need to stop pretending you can control everything. You can't fix what's broken, Amanda. You've burned too many bridges, hurt too many people. You need to start facing the consequences of your actions." There was a long, uncomfortable pause, and for a brief moment, I thought she might hang up. But she didn't. Instead, I heard her take a shaky breath, her voice trembling as she spoke again. "Do you think I'll ever get a second chance?" The question hung in the air, and I almost laughed at how naive she sounded. Second chances? After everything she had done? She wasn't entitled to that. Not from me, not from anyone. "You want a second chance?" I asked, my voice hardening. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you tore everything apart. Second chances are earned, Amanda. And right now, you haven't earned one from me." I could hear the sobs beginning to break through her voice, the cracks finally showing. She was unraveling, and the more I stayed calm, the more she lost her grip on herself. It was like watching a house of cards slowly collapse, each piece falling apart one by one. I knew that if I gave her even an inch, she'd try to claw her way back into my life. But I wasn't about to let that happen. No, this was my time to make sure she understood the full scope of her actions. She wasn't going to get away with it. And just when I thought the conversation was over, she surprised me once again. I need you to know that I was wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I regret everything. If I could go back, I would. I would change everything. I'm so sorry." I shook my head, almost in disbelief. "You can't take it back, Amanda. What's done is done. And the more you keep pretending, the more you'll lose. The damage is irreversible." She was silent for a moment, and when she finally spoke again, it was in a different tone. "So, that's it then? You're done?" "Done? I've been done for a long time," I replied, my words crisp and final. "You don't get to manipulate me anymore. You don't get to play me like you used to." The call ended shortly after that, but the sense of satisfaction I felt lingered. I had taken everything she had tried to use against me and turned it on her. She thought she could control the narrative, but she was now seeing firsthand how it felt to lose control. And I wasn't done yet. The worst part was still to come. The next few days felt almost surreal, like watching someone drown in slow motion. Amanda was sinking deeper, but it wasn't the kind of pain that brought her clarity or redemption. It was the kind of pain that cracked open her defenses, exposing everything she had tried to hide. The lies, the manipulation, the emotional games she had played. It was all starting to catch up with her, and no amount of fake smiles or desperate pleas could undo the damage she had done. By now, the fallout from her breakup with me had started to ripple through every aspect of her life. She was losing friends left and right, the people who once praised her strength and independence now seeing her for what she truly was, a woman who couldn't take responsibility for her actions. It was almost tragic how fast the masks were slipping. She had spent so long crafting an image of herself as the strong, brave woman who walked away from an unhappy marriage to find true love. But the truth was, she was nothing more than a scared, insecure person who had jumped into something new without understanding the consequences. Ethan, the man she had left me for, had completely cut her off. She had convinced herself that he was her soulmate, that their connection was something special, something destined. But now, just as everything else in her life was falling apart, Ethan had disappeared. His texts went unanswered, his calls ignored. She had gone from being the confident woman who had dumped her unfit husband for the perfect guy, to being the woman who had no one left to turn to. And that's when I really started to get creative. I knew that Amanda was proud, and that her pride would be her undoing. She couldn't bear to admit that she was wrong. She wouldn't ask for help, even though she desperately needed it. So, I began to leverage her public persona against her. It started with a simple post, nothing too dramatic, just a picture of me out with a few friends, enjoying a night in the city. The caption was casual, a reflection of how things had changed for me. Life's been good lately. I'm realizing more and more how much of it is about embracing change and not holding on to things that no longer serve you. #new beginnings #moving forward. The post was innocent enough, but it was enough to send Amanda into a frenzy. She had tried to craft a narrative where she was the one who was moving on, and now, I was showing her, in the most subtle way possible, that I had moved on, too. That I wasn't just existing in the aftermath of our marriage, I was living a full, meaningful life. And that realization hit her like a ton of bricks. That night, she called me again. Her voice was shaky, her words jumbled with desperation. "Why are you doing this? Why do you have to rub it in my face? I'm trying, okay? I'm trying to move on, and you keep doing things that make it harder. I don't deserve this." I couldn't help the smirk that tugged at my lips. "You don't deserve it? Amanda, you've spent so long making me out to be the bad guy, pretending you were the one who had to suffer through everything. Now, it's your turn to face the music. You've built this image for yourself, but you can't keep pretending it's real." She was quiet for a long time, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't want it to be like this. I just thought I was making the right choice. I felt a flash of something, pity, maybe, but I suppressed it. You made your choice. You chose to walk away from everything we built, and now you're paying the price. You can't expect me to feel bad for you." And with those words, I hung up. The game was over. There was no going back for her now. Her world had been meticulously built on a foundation of manipulation and half-truths, and now that foundation had crumbled. She was left with nothing but the wreckage of her choices. She had no friends left to turn to, no one who would stand by her through the fallout. But there was one final piece to this puzzle I had been building. I had been setting it all up, planting the seeds in the right people. Amanda wasn't just losing her friends. She was about to lose her reputation. I reached out to a few of the more influential people in our social circle. A couple of mutual acquaintances who had always looked up to Amanda, admired her strength and independence, but who were now quietly distancing themselves from her. I made sure they understood the full story. Not the story Amanda had been telling, but the truth. The truth about the betrayal, the manipulation, and the lies. By the time Amanda realized what had happened, it was too late. People she had trusted had started to turn on her. The carefully constructed image of the strong, independent woman who had moved on from a failed marriage was falling apart in front of her eyes. She had been exposed as the manipulator she truly was. The woman who had once been the center of attention was now just another cautionary tale, an example of what happens when someone's arrogance and pride lead them to destroy everything they had. The truth always has a way of coming out. And when it does, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about the carefully constructed lives we've built, the lies we've told, or the personas we've created. It simply reveals everything. And that's exactly what happened to Amanda. It started with the whispers, small, almost imperceptible rumors among her former friends and acquaintances. At first, it was nothing more than a quiet shift in the way people spoke about her. She used to be the center of attention, the one everyone turned to for advice, for guidance. But now, people were starting to talk behind her back. The facade was cracking. I had been pulling the strings for weeks, subtly nudging things in the right direction. I'd spoken to her closest friends, mutual contacts, and even a few business associates who had once respected her. Little by little, the truth about her betrayal, her manipulation, and the way she had spun our entire relationship into something toxic was spreading. One day, she called me again, and this time, her voice was almost unrecognizable. The confidence, the bravado, the control, everything that had once defined her was gone. What was left was a woman who had been exposed for who she truly was. She had nothing left. "Everyone knows, don't they?" she asked, her voice small, barely a whisper. "Everyone knows what I did. Everyone knows how I hurt you. How I tried to make you look like the bad guy. You're right. I built this whole lie, and now it's all coming apart. I'm losing everything. I can't take it." The guilt, the panic, the regret in her voice, it was so sweet, almost too sweet. It was exactly what I had wanted to hear. For so long, she had manipulated me, used me as her emotional punching bag, pretending to be the victim while throwing me under the bus at every opportunity. But now, she was the one feeling the weight of the consequences. Now, it was her turn to feel the destruction she had wrought. I leaned back in my chair, savoring every moment. "Amanda, I told you this was coming. You can't keep pretending to be something you're not. You can't control everything, no matter how hard you try. People are starting to see the real you, and they're not impressed. You thought you could get away with everything, but now you're paying the price." She broke down completely on the other end of the line. "I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to feel alive again. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now everything is ruined." I could hear the anguish in her voice, but there was no sympathy left in me for her. The woman I had once loved, the woman I had trusted, was now a hollow shell of who she used to be. And I wasn't going to be there to pick up the pieces for her. Not anymore. "You should have thought about that before you tore everything apart, Amanda," I said coldly. "Before you left me for someone else, before you tried to make me the villain. You wanted a new life, a new beginning. Well, now you have it. But it's not the one you thought you'd get. This is what happens when you lie, manipulate, and throw people away like they're nothing." The silence that followed was thick with her sobs. But this time, I didn't offer her comfort. I didn't tell her it was going to be okay, because I knew it wasn't. It wasn't about her anymore. This was about making her understand the cost of betrayal, the emotional price of manipulation. And then, I made my final move. I posted one last thing on social media. A simple status update. Sometimes, the best way to move forward is to let go of everything that's been holding you back. It's funny how letting go of the past can free you in ways you never expected. #letgo, #newlife, #stronger than before. That was it. The final nail in the coffin. The last piece of the puzzle. Amanda had no idea what hit her. When she saw it, when she read those words, she realized exactly what I had done. She wasn't just losing her friends, her reputation, and her relationship with Ethan, she was losing her identity. The person she had worked so hard to become, the image she had crafted so carefully, was being torn apart in front of her eyes. And all I had done was sit back and let it happen. In the days that followed, Amanda's world continued to unravel. The final friends she had left began to distance themselves, the whispers growing louder, and the pity she had once tried to elicit turned into disdain. Her reputation was in shambles, her relationships fractured beyond repair. And worst of all, she was left with the painful realization that she had done this to herself. I wasn't the villain in her story anymore. I was the hero in mine.